Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roy, and welcome to the first ever video on the channel. In this channel, I'll talk about things that interest me. They're mainly random things like cool fruits, or cool scientific subjects like philosophy, sometimes quantum mechanics, finances, etc. A lot of things, basically everything that interests me. We'll talk about these things. Uh, my name's Roy. I'm 19, and today, what I want to talk about is my honest attempt of sort of understanding and trying to solve quantum mechanics to the best of my ability. Now, keep in mind, I'm not like a great mathematician or anything. I'm just an enthusiast. I'm not really good at solving super complex equations. I just like to simplify things and use math more so of a language to understand stuff rather than some sort of like a complex whatever, just using it as a tool to understand. So keep in mind, most of the things that I'm going to talk about are mainly theoretical, things that I've observed and that make sense um, according to my philosophies. I've been studying philosophy for a while now, and a lot of the concepts that you're going to see in this video are actually inspired by Hermetic, Nightingalian, and even Stoic philosophies. Um, so let's get this started. On my right, there is a board, and this board has like basically segments in the video that I want to talk about because I'm not really good at remembering stuff, at least not yet. Um, and over here on my left is my trusty notebook, one of them. This is one of the 14 notebooks roughly that I have on me. This is the one that I used to write some quantum mechanics. This is the most recent one. I have several other notebooks. So I'm gonna give you a quick intro about the problems with quantum mechanics and general relativity. Here's the thing. The problem with general relativity, which is Einstein's theory, is that it does really well on explaining the world in like broader terms. Planets, cosmic bodies, even ourselves. It basically explains everything really well until we arrive at the more quantum, like the smaller realm. Now, the smaller realm, the quantum realm, quantum mechanics, explains everything very well, besides one thing, which is pretty damn big in Einstein's equations, which is gravity itself. Basically, no one has been able to sort of bring gravity into quantum mechanics and connect these two theories at last, or at least change things. Now, I want to address this issue in a way that only I can, using my philosophy, which is to, instead of these philosophies not philosophies, theories contradict each other, we're actually going to connect them. And inherently, they don't contradict each other. I'd want to use a format. I don't know if I invented this. This was inspired by the Hermetic philosophy. I call it the actually, I have no name for it. We'll call it like the dual disciplinary spectrum. Yeah. So a disciplinary spectrum is basically a spectrum that is meant to express how one thing's ideas or core principles sort of change with a specific variable of an equation. So basically, the world exists within these two sets of equations, and when you tweak one of their variables, the principles, the rules themselves, not only the variables, but the rules themselves sort of start to shift from this end to the other. And by tweaking one of these variables, we can sort of assess where on the spectrum our phenomena lies. Now, I know this sounds a bit complicated. I'm really trying to simplify here. Let's see. Here's what I think, basically, and I drew this out. I have a board in front of me. Can you guys see? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Okay. Yeah. Ah. So, I apologize for this. I'm sorry, this is in reverse. The thing about general relativity is that it suggests that time, or excuse me, here's what I think that separates these two theories. I think that once you get to a size small enough for it to qualify as, quantum mechanics, I think that the thing that actually changes in itself, which is the whole reason for the confusion, is the very dimensional hierarchy. Now, what do I mean by this? In general relativity, you have 4 dimensions. Obviously, you have length, width, height, and time. Now, from all these quantum mechanics concepts, from what I've observed logically, I've sort of reached a conclusion where it's the other way around. See, I was always taught to invert, but we're not going to invert the equation, we're going to invert the principle. So right now, instead of it being length, width, height, and time, it's actually going to be, first of all, time, and then height, and then width, and then length. Essentially, time before space instead of space before time. Just like we exist in space and move through time, they exist through time and the concept of change itself, and move through space, which actually explains the concept of quantum tunneling, of certain quantum particles seemingly moving through object, which makes sense because they don't yet exist in time, they don't yet exist in space until they're observed. So they're sort of free to move around until they are, I guess, assigned some sort of existence by an observer effect, like us or whatever the hell seems to interact with it. Now here's my critique to Einstein, right? Einstein, first of all, he's absolutely brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to fix his equations or say that I'm more genius than he is. It's not about math. It's not about math at all. His mathematics are literally perfect, which is why they will remain unsolved for like 100 years or something. Because it's not really a problem with mathematics. It's a matter of approach, a matter of thinking that there's only one model that can describe the whole universe, where in my spectrum theory I suggest that there are 2 models, but at one point the rules seem to be in reverse. There are a perfect inverse. So my critique towards Einstein, now that I've sort of put this disclaimer on here, is the following. He thinks that there's or I guess he thought or acted like there's only one way to the top of the mountain, one model to really express reality in and of itself. I say with my spectrum that there are 2 models, his general relativity and quantum mechanics, and what changes these things, what changes in the size, is actually the dimensional hierarchy. So both of these theories, they still very much work and very much describe aspects of the universe. But I just hate the idea of saying this one thing works until it's not, and then another thing works. That just implies a spectrum. And so what Einstein did in trying to enforce general relativity upon, I guess, reality in of itself, instead of combining these 2 theories properly, is basically, it would be the exact, I guess, exercise equivalent of wanting really big and strong legs, and then instead of squatting or something, you'd run. Here's why. Just as we have the spectrum that I've just showed you between the quantum mechanics and general relativity, we also have the spectrum of aerobic and anaerobic exercise. Let me quickly write it down. Anaerobic aerobic 2 minute. I'm going to use exercise science to give a lot of analogies here because I think it's brilliant. Okay, here's a rough sketch, right? So this is anaerobic exercise. I hope I didn't misspell it or anything. And what makes an exercise, or I guess in our case reality, anaerobic is it being under 2 minutes and more intense. And the more intense it is, the less in duration it should be. Because if it's very intense but you can keep it going for a long time, it's not that intense because you can continue to endure it. And this targets strength. Now we'll move on to the aerobic part. After the 2-minute mark, it just implies that the exercise isn't really intense. And instead of targeting strength, it now targets more endurance, stamina, stuff like that, instead of targeting strength. Both of these are very valid forms of exercise, in our case, expressions of reality. However, one targets strength and the other targets endurance and stamina. And the only thing that really changes is the duration and intensity. So these things practically invert. The more the more duration and less intensity, the more it's aerobic. And if we reverse it, if we invert it, that would mean that the more intensity and less duration would make it anaerobic in nature. It's the exact same thing here. So instead of the 2-minute mark that I expressed in the, I guess, exercise science spectrum, we will call this point the quantum threshold, the middle between the spectrum between quantum mechanics and general relativity. And this middle point right here expresses the time. Expresses the size. So this are size and energy, maybe. I'm pretty sure it's size. So the smaller it is, the more it's quantum mechanics. The more it seems that the dimensional hierarchy is in fact reversed. And the larger it is, the more likely it is to be in general relativity instead of quantum mechanics. And we're going to call the middle point the quantum threshold, where the a particle begins to, instead of being a normal particle, it begins to be a quantum particle and adhere to these rules and not these ones. Or in other words, this is where an exercise turns from anaerobic to aerobic. So once again, essentially what Einstein tried to do is he basically tried to grow like really, really big arms by waving his arm for like 15 minutes. Instead of, doing really heavy squats to grow big legs, he just ran. It's not that way. It's not how it works. It works in reverse. It works in inversion, which is why I point to time actually being the first dimension when you take a look at the quantum realm. Now, this also seems to make sense, and this one's a bit of a recent one. I came up with it literally right before shooting this video. This could also explain quantum entanglement, by the way, where two particles just seem to be sort of connected to each other, yet they could be in completely different location. That would be because they're not bound by space, but they're actually moving through time, but they belong to the same body, which is why there's an inherent connection. This would theoretically make teleportation possible, and now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure we teleported something, right? Like a quantum particle or like an electron, something like that, right? We did that. I think it's because of that. And this also explains quantum tunneling, why things, I guess quantum particles seem to move through objects. That's because they don't exist through space. They're not bound by space. They exist in the, I guess you'd call that the fourth dimension. They exist through time. They don't exist through space yet until they're being observed. Now, speaking of being observed, this is kind of similar, now that you think about it, to like video game render distance, if that makes sense, right? See, distance is more like a very relative to your size, which is why, and I guess I can bring something up real quick, right? There was this one quote that I really want to bring up. Nope, yeah. Hold on, right. I guess I didn't send it. But there was this one mathematician who said that beneath a distance of like 10 to the power of whatever the fuck, um, general relativity is completely thrown away. And basically, I think that it's because that's exactly where it meets the sort of the quantum mechanics instead of general relativity. But that doesn't mean that these theories are against each other. In fact, quite the opposite. It means that they work in synergy with each other up to a certain threshold where the rules seem to change. I think also, and this is a bit of like an even more theoretical sort of um, guess thought pattern. And I'm sorry if I'm complicating it. I'm really trying my best to simplify this stuff. I don't really have a script. I just have things to remind me of things I want to talk about. What I want to talk about again? Damn it. Hold on, give me a second. Critique, quantum. Oh, yeah. This is a bit more theoretical, right? Well, everything I just said is, mainly theoretical. But I want us to think for a second about the possibility of quantum neuroscience. See, in all philosophy that I've studied, in Stoicism, Taoism, and even Earl Nightingale, they all keep saying that what you think about and the way that you think about things seem to change reality, seems to change the way things are for you. And I think that basically, and again, this is really, 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 really theoretical and unpolished. This is a very, very new concept, at least to me. I'm not entirely sure if this exists yet. But I think that our thoughts may act as an observer. And the thing under observation might actually be reality. I think that we, by actively observing it, we are literally forming reality and giving these quote-unquote particles a form of existence. By collapsing a crap ton of possible realities into one singular reality, which is ours, and it continues to form itself as we continue to observe it. Now, back in 2023, I theorized that whatever we expose to is going to end up what we think about the most. Whatever we're exposed to most is going to change how we think about things the most. And so, if we create reality as we observe it with our thoughts, and our reality influences our thoughts by exposing us to different things, this makes reality a self-sustaining cycle rather than something that's already pre-built. Sort of like a program still learning, if that makes sense, or like a video game, which is why I mentioned the video game render distance. The more we move through and the more we observe the different elements, the more they're actually being assigned an existence, which would be a cool concept. But again, this is really, 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 really highly theoretical. That's really all that I have to say. So I'll just sum it up and try to simplify it even more. So basically, quantum mechanics and general relativity do not contradict each other. They're not one against each other. They lie on the spectrum between these two equations. One set of equations of quantum mechanics and the other of general relativity, and reality exists in between those. And right in the middle is the size that determines whether it's gonna be affected by quantum mechanics rules or general relativity rules. Does that make sense? And what are the rules exactly? The dimensional hierarchy, at least so it seems. So in general relativity, the first dimension is length, the second is width, the third is height, and the fourth is time. In quantum mechanics, it's literally the same but reversed. So this is the format that I suggest that it exists, because from my observation and from all of the YouTube videos I watched on quantum mechanics, if you actually apply this format of like everything is the same, but instead of the equations being reversed, it's actually the ideas and core principles, as in the dimensional hierarchy. When you take that and you actually apply it to these concepts, theoretically, it works out really well. It's really formatted, and I think that's really the problem. The problem with Einstein is that it really was not mathematical. His mathematics was so elegant and just straight up like it was his mathematics were perfect, but he applied the wrong approach to the right thing. So if we apply, for example, that time goes first, the very concept of gravity in the quantum realm would not make sense whatsoever, because there's no actual spatial object. It exists through time. It doesn't exist through space yet. So why in the world would it have a gravitational pull? This sort of like this way of thinking of reversing the dimensional hierarchy makes the reason why we couldn't figure it out. It makes a lot of sense because it's not supposed to make sense. It's not supposed to be figured out, because if it's figured out, nothing makes sense. There isn't supposed to be any gravity in the quantum world because these things aren't like in an actual physical reality just yet until they're being observed. So I think that they move through time, and once they're being observed in some way, shape, or form, they're being assigned an existence. So please take that, because I'm not that smart when it comes to mathematics, as like how mathematics is in solving equations. So if anyone's watching this and if anyone got any value from this video and knows a thing or two about mathematics, please try to apply this format of just everything's the same but reverse to, I guess, whatever you're doing over there, you crazy quantum scientists. This has been just very much theoretical. It's a format that when I applied it to like every quantum concept, it made perfect sense. So I really hope that you guys can plug your equations into this and really just figure things out, because I'm going to leave it to you guys, because you're much smarter than me and capable than I am at solving really complex equations. I just like using math as a language because it helps me understand stuff. Speaking of using mathematics as a language, I kind of want to shift your point, and this is something I teach my football players, right? I made an equation of the law of attraction, which is pretty cool. Real quick, the law of attraction is kind of a philosophical, esoteric, almost a voodoo-ish principle, but it is a principle that I've seen work. If you guys don't know, I have lost almost 60 kilograms, and everything that I kept saying that I really, really wanted to become, I became and am becoming as I go on, which implies that the law of attraction could potentially work. And it kind of is based on the Nightingalean, I guess, philosophy of you become what you think about. I've written a lot about it in 2023, and I made an equation to really sort of express that, which is this. R, which stands for reality, equals thoughts, the thought's intensity, times focus on these thoughts, divided by constraints like fear, doubt, etc. Now, why do I think that's the case? First of all, let me say something about C. C is a parameter of T, which means that it is a type of thought, for sure. But the thing is, it is meant to make your thoughts stronger. As in, what happens when you overcome doubt? You're a hell of a lot more determined. You're a lot stronger. Which is why I teach my football players and everyone to never say I can't, and I bitch slap the hell out of them if they say I can't. Because if anyone who was ever successful said I can't, they would have never gotten to the point that they got to, ever. If anyone actually believed a about themselves in this manner. No one's ever would have achieved anything. Everything you see around you started with a thought and an idea. I'm getting off topic here. So I got this equation, and right now I'm working with this equation, and I'm trying to think about my goals as much as possible, create as many systems as possible. So I think that really our mind can sort of, kind of like how when we observe the quantum particle, it sort of collapses its probabilities into one reality, into one like state of being, or it's in a certain location. I think that the law of attraction is in fact very possibly a quantum principle instead of being like a voodoo, esoteric, whatever the fuck. Because I've observed it on myself, literally. Um, and I think that that equation really sums it up. Again, equations in mathematics are really should be used to simplify things as much as possible. If they don't do that, they're practically useless. Um, so this is the equation that I'm working with, and the suggestion that the law of attraction is inherently a quantum principle is cool, but it won't help you. Whatever your goal is, don't think about this equation, don't think about the law of attraction, think about your goal. Think about how you can achieve whatever the fuck it is that you want to achieve. I'm sorry for curses. Um, that's what you should be focusing on. None of this information will help you at all if you don't have the balls to apply it. That's basically all that I said. Back to the topic of quantum mechanics. Back to the topic of quantum mechanics. I hope that you guys can use this format better than I can, because I have a lot of stuff to do, and I'm not good at solving super complex equations just like you just yet. Um, so if anyone can derive any value and really use this cool format that I've invented to sort of express these cool principles and solve problems and do whatever it is that you guys want to do with quantum mechanics, go for it. By the way, all this, literally all this, the pages I've written, whatever the fuck this is, all this started by, me staying up late and watching YouTube, and I came across like this 27-minute video that says, what is the problem that Einstein couldn't solve or whatever. And I was like, I'm not going to watch a 27-minute video. So I just went to ChatGPT, had it summarized, and I was like, wait, this makes sense. The both of them worked. It's like anaerobic and aerobic exercise. I don't know, if you guys want, I can actually read you the conversation for a second. Because I put in the Google Docs because it was really important to me. So I said, explain very, very, very simple and fun terms. What is the problem in relativity which Einstein couldn't solve? And ChatGPT said, imagine the universe like a giant trampoline. So it basically said a lot of crazy things, like a lot of prompts. It said basically, all right, let's make this super duper simple and fun. Imagine the universe is like a giant trampoline. Einstein relativity is like saying, hey, big things like stars and planets bend the trampoline. And that's what we feel as gravity. He was really good at explaining how bending works when the trampoline is smooth and empty or has just a few objects. But here's the big juicy problem. Imagine the trampoline shaking like crazy. There are tiny invisible bugs, particles jumping around like popcorn. That's the quantum world. Blah, blah, blah. Basically, it described the problem to me. And I was like, and here's the first prompt where I sort of figured it out. I said, well, I think I cracked it. I think that relativity in itself is relative, and it lies between two equations, much like the anaerobic versus aerobic. It just means that this is a spectrum. In other words, two things can work, so our universe lies between two equations that each describe an extreme. An answer to that in aerobic exercise and in anaerobic exercise would basically be that, and this is me just going into some equations that I said about anaerobic and aerobic exercise, but basically this was me saying that Einstein was basically trying to grow stronger legs, but instead of doing squats, he was running. So to sum it up, ladies and gentlemen, this, I just reversed and inversed everything. I hope that you guys can apply better and maybe use this format to explain things, and I really hope that you guys derived any sort of value. Right now I'm looking through the conversation to see if there's anything else that I really want to say in this video that I forgot, because again, I tend to forget things really easy. So just give me a second. Let's see. So yeah, this is basically it. This was, I suppose, my rant about quantum mechanics and general relativity and physics and all that. I really hope that you guys derive any sort of value from this. This is why I do this YouTube channel, so that, I'm sort of trying to put myself out there. Maybe future me will want to watch this video back and sort of think and see what he was back when he was 19. And hell, if any of you guys, even my future self, I'm talking to you, buddy. I know it's you here. I don't know if you still have this hair or whatever. I don't know who you are, but if any one of you gotten any sort of value from it, that's a win for me. I don't care if I'm 100% wrong on everything I just said here, because again, this is all really speculative and theoretical, but I don't care if everything that I said is really wrong. If anyone got any sort of value, it helped them figure it out, that even if it was false, if it helped them figure anything out, that's a win for me. That's a win. A win is a win. A win is a win, ladies and gentlemen. A win is a win. And if you want to argue, I'm playing. I might actually remove this from the video. No, I won't. I want future me to see this purely for what it is, which is why there's going to be very minimal editing throughout this entire channel, by the way. I want my future self to see everything who I was. Oh, by the way, don't worry about these weird red dots. I just got stung like a lot by a bunch of stupid moths. Anyhow, I'm getting really off topic. I should end this video right now. This has been I'm not sure if what I call this channel yet. It could be Protocol 10. It could be something else. I'm not sure. Anyways, I will end this video now. Please use this format, and I really hope that you got any sort of value from this. Anyhow, you guys have a really great day. I'm gonna upload this video. Next video is probably gonna be, well, I guess you guys are gonna see it. This is basically more rants and stuff that I've written down either years ago or recently. So have a good one, and I will see you. I'm not gonna say in the next video, right? That's Markiplier, right? I'll see you later. Yeah. Anyhow, see ya.